what's going on? It's the Fuzz! Custom card contest number 5. Man, it's going really, really fast. So the theme for this one was something that interacts with spells or artifacts in some way. Doesn't necessarily have to remove them, just has to interact with them. So for this one, I'm going to just run through all the cards. And for every card that I thought was in my top 5 favorites, I'm going to show this little top 5 mark, meaning it's in the top 5. And then at the end, I'm going to decide the one winner from the top 5. I feel like saying 5th best, 4th best, 3rd best is just kind of... It's not even entirely fair, because very often the differences between the cards are so small. It's not even fair to call one card better than another. So I'm going to do it this way because I decided that. Oh, and I have a little bonus. At the end of all this, I have one custom card too. You may have already seen it. It's at the end of the thread. If not, I hope you'll be pleased with it. Anyways, let's get rolling. Kicking things up with the Rocky Spellseeker by Marcus. This card reminds me of the Dwarven Spellbreaker. This guy can directly attack spells, essentially, and if he damages them, they are destroyed. And you draw a card. So it's essentially just like the Spellbreaker, but I mean, the condition is the same. He has to be able to attack and not be blocked, right? Now, the Spellbreaker gets extra speed. This guy draws a card if he destroys it, but he does not deal face damage. And he's a little bit slower. It's a cool card, I think. It's a little bit expensive at 3 aspect with double rage, but, you know, giving rage a little bit of spell removal, yeah, I think I'm on board with that. One funny thing, though, because he can attack spells as if they were 2-speed creatures. If your opponent plays Hands from Beyond, he cannot attack Hands from Beyond because he'll have 1 speed. Just a funny side note. Anyways, moving on. Blade of Inquisition, very similar idea. Buffs a creature, giving it 2 attack, 1 health, and 1 speed. If your opponent has a spell, it gets +1 speed. And then when the creature deals combat damage to the hero, destroy one of your spells. Again, very similar to the Spellbreaker, but it's a buff. It seems a little bit overcosted. +2/+1 is not really that good. The Angelic Might spell, which is +2/+2 for 3 mana and 2 aspects, doesn't really see play anywhere. Now, being able to destroy spells is kind of neat, but this could easily be like 2 aspect 3 mana or even less. I feel it's a little bit redundant because you're giving Order exactly what it already has. Though this is probably a little bit better than the Spellbreaker just because you can put it on any creature and your opponent maybe can't react to it immediately since he won't know which creature will have the buff. So you just put it on a creature that can attack this turn, hit the face, and blow up a spell. So I'll probably run this over the actual Spellbreaker, but again, I think just the cost of this card is way too high. It's a shame too. It'd be nice to see something like this. Next up, we got the Trickster Fae. Oh man, did this card make me laugh. So this introduces a new keyword, instant. It's pretty much exactly what you think it is. That is, you can play it immediately, you know, as if it was an instant spell. When you play him, you get to search for an instant, and then the next 2 instants cost 2 less. Basically, what you're searching for is Ambush Strike and Tornado Outbreak. I think this card is really cool. Having creatures with instant seems like the next step in the evolution of Spellweaver. And this one works pretty well. You get to search out an instant as well, probably like an Outbreak. Like if you search out an Ambush Strike, you can play the Ambush Strike for 0, and then he's like a 2/4 blocker. So that's kind of cool. It's like a new form of Pacify. And actually, this card, I put it in my top 5 just because the art is just too much, man. When I saw this card, I started laughing because this is a fairy, but it's a dude. It's a dude fairy, and he's looking at you this way, and I was just on the floor laughing, man. But no, the card, the idea is pretty cool. I would like to see more of this idea explored, and interestingly, my card has the instant tag as well. And actually, I called it instant in mine because of this card. I wanted them to be consistent. I think instant is a fine word. If not, it could be something like blitz or lightning or flash, whatever. I think instant is completely fine. And having instant creatures, that's cool. Moving right along, we got Izar the Goods Collector. It's a neutral card. When he comes into play, you get to put any spell or artifact on the field or in any hand under him, and then when he leaves, you get to put a copy of that into your hand. Oh no, actually, that card goes into your hand and it's colorless. So what scares me about this card is just how obnoxious it could be. It's got a great body already, and it's like a Drayla. It can hit any spell or artifact in your opponent's hand or on the field. So it's like a unicorn rolled into a Drayla. It rolled into a Library Guards, because you also get to add that card to your hand after he dies. Oh man, I really don't want to go up against this card ever, because him being able to just steal whatever he wants and then later give your opponent this card, and even has the ability to play it for free if you have 4 aspects and pay 2 mana, but you're probably never even going to worry about that. Because he's neutral, you could literally put him in every single deck and make spells and artifacts really bad. Your opponent plays Scatterdoor's Bidding, play this guy, steal the Scatterdoor's Bidding, and then if he ever gets killed, you get a Scatterdoor's Bidding in your hand. Oh my god. Nah, man. Well, I could appreciate... I mean, the card is obviously insanely powerful, but I am severely opposed to a card that can literally steal cards from your opponent's hand. I mean, I already don't like Mind Extortion. I already don't like Drayla. This guy is like super powered Drayla unicorn, like a unicorn library Drayla guard or something. It's crazy, and it's neutral. Oh my god, way too OP. Ravenier, what have you done? How you cannot unleash this monstrosity onto Spellweaver? It's a cool card, but I think it's way too OP and a little too obnoxious. Winged Priest Garuda by Jabik. Speaking of ridiculously obnoxious and overpowered cards, say hello to this little guy. So comes in with 3 energy, and then you can either pay... what is it? What can I say? Pay energy using cards you control. So that could be him. It pays 3 energy, so he immediately has 1 trigger. Or you can sacrifice a spell or an artifact. And if you do any of that, you deal 3 damage to whatever you want and gain 3 life. You know what's an easy way to put artifacts on the board? Renovation Facility. That puts 3 artifacts on the board. So if you play Winged Priest Garuda afterwards, you could trigger it 4 times, gain 12 life, and deal 3 damage 4 times in a row. So you could potentially burn your opponent for 12 damage. And if you play this on top of a charged, alright, it could get even better. But the real thing is just the artifacts. Or spells, but mostly the artifacts. You got a bunch of golems on the board, drop Mr. Garuda, insta-win. Even Jabix acknowledges this card is probably overpowered. It seems completely ridiculous. Like, you play this card and you instantly win the game. Because you can just burn your opponent for so much damage. I could see people playing like a blue order deck and like ramping up, putting out tons of artifacts, playing Garuda and like burning your opponent for 18. It's a cool finisher, but that's nuts. It can't be this good. Anyways, enough of that. We got Mara, Panther Queen by Will Silver. This one, when you play an artifact, you can pay 3 extra mana to summon a Panther of Shadows from your deck or graveyard. The Panther of Shadows is just a 2/2/4 speed slave. And then for 2 mana, you can put a Might Emblem on a Panther you control. For a 4 aspect card, this seems rather tame. Having to pay 3 mana to summon a Panther, and only when you play an artifact, seems pretty unlikely. Not only that, you have to put these things into your deck. Now, I guess this is not a terrible creature to put into your deck, because it's got 4 speed. But Mara just seems really bad, actually. What artifacts could you even play with? Implants, I guess? But you have to have 3 mana left over to summon a Panther. And you have to have them in your deck. Now, as long as you get one, you can just keep summoning the same one from your graveyard or whatever. but it's a lot of work for not a lot of payoff when you compare her to cards like Red Dragon, Karthus, and Bezarok, which have much more powerful effects. 4 aspect cards really have to make a big impact, and Mara, unfortunately, just does not, which is a shame, because it might be cool. I think you could just scale this card down. You could make it like a 3 aspect, 3 mana card, and I still don't think it would see any play. What you really have to do is make the cost to summon a Panther like 1 mana as a start. Then we could look at it again, but 3 mana is a lot to pay. Like, this card is not worth 3 mana. And you have to have this on the board and play an artifact. It's just a little too much work for not enough reward. But hey, it's your first submission. That's alright. It's cool that you went for a big card. You'll submit a really awesome card next time. I'm sure of it. Moving right along, we got the Great Foundry by Lyris, a hero power. It basically does the renovation facility effect on... That is to say, it upgrades them by 1. Like, by 1 level or artifact. Like, everyone. And it does it to all your artifacts, and then it summons the drones. Long cooldown and a high requirement, but considering what it can do, this seems really cool. And it seems like it would fit perfectly into the deck. Or even just... I feel like this should have just been released in the game. Like, it seems just ideal to support that archetype. Just gives you that huge hero power. It's got a long cooldown, but if you hit like 2 things, if you hit 2 drones, you get 2 golems and another drone, right? So there's some potential there, especially definitely since the renovation facilities just summon a whole bunch of drones. Really, really fun card. Oh yeah, it's a top 5 card. In case you didn't, in case that wasn't clear, but no, really good job, Lyris. Moving on, we got the Spell Eater Unicorn by Yarphosphorans. This is the venerated unicorn's bigger brother. So basically, can be chosen as a target of spells. That's cool. That's actually kind of handy, I guess. It can counter both spells and artifacts. You can destroy multiple artifacts, kind of. It has enough energy for 1 trigger. It loses 1 speed, but if you can give it back 2 energy, it could kill another artifact. And the other ability where it can stop spells from being played, that's kind of neat. You have to have 2 mana, but you can stop a spell. You may is the important part. You don't have to. So, seems pretty cool. It's a bit steep aspect requirement, but it seems fair considering that it can actually just deny a Cataclysm. What your opponent has to do is, if they want to kill it, they have to hit it with either Karthus, or they have to play like a smaller spell, like Assassinate, after they hit it with a Mutant, and only then remove it. So it could give you some way to protect your board from a Cataclysm by playing a Unicorn ahead of time and saving 2 mana, and then your opponent can't just Cataclysm. So they're forced to play around a little bit more. That's an interesting card. Very interesting. Almost made it to top 5, but the top 5 cards are... you know what? This would probably call top 6, honestly. It would be the 6th card, but it's a really neat idea. Also, nice picture. Not sure about the artifact destruction ability, though. Seems like a little bit much. Like, it's already a nice spell counter, and with a good body. But now I'm just, now I'm nitpicking. Moving right along to Mr. Tulanor by Zikrik. When you play him, it gets a Might Emblem for every spell on the field. So, obviously, this only counts, like, persistent spells, like Blessings and Curses. And then whenever another spell enters the field, he gets another Might Emblem. So the idea is you play him with a bunch of spells. He comes in as like an 8/7, and you're pretty happy with that. Now, that might not be too feasible, but the 2 colors do have some spells in them. Like, you've got Sleep, you've got Force Field, you've got Restless Tombs, you've got Electrostatic Storm. Well, maybe not Electrostatic Storm, but you also got like Haunt, Curse of Risha. Oh, goodness me. But anyways, it's a very interesting card because it kind of encourages a new type of deck where this guy could be quite powerful, because if you have a couple spells on the board, I mean, if you have even 2, it's a 5/4 with 3 speed. That's a pretty powerful card. It could kill your opponent really fast. So I do like this. It's a nice push into like a new way to play creatures, like a synergy between spells and creatures. This is actually really awesome. That's why I'm putting him in the top 5, because it'd be interesting to experiment, see if you can actually get enough spells. Probably play like a reanimate deck, where you already have probably a decent number of spells, but then you want to run the tombs too. Might be an interesting challenge to try to make him work, but I think he could work. And even as just a, as a baseline, he's not great because he's like a Flame Dancer Shaman, or was it called Firebringer Shaman? With even one buff though, he suddenly becomes pretty good. Yeah, I'd like to see what Tolor is capable of. Moving right along, we got the Thaumic Combobulator by Gourd. So, wow, what a card. So, you can transform any spells or artifacts on the board or in graveyard into components. Now, it doesn't show what a component is. We can probably assume that it's like a artifact that does nothing. It's just there, and it's going to be under this. And you can do it for 1 mana. And then for 2 mana, sacrifice an X number of them, and then put a level X artifact into play. I love the idea, and in fact, I'm going to put it in the top 5. The only issue is that this card is slightly broken right now, and partly due to how transformation works. In Spellweaver, when something is transformed, like in this case, the spells becoming components, then when it leaves the field, it transforms back into what it was. And the problem with that is that means when you sacrifice the components, they become the spells and artifacts they were, so you could just keep doing it over and over again. And because this isn't legendary, I mean, it doesn't really need to be legendary because there's no limit on how many times you can do it. That's another problem. There is no limit to how many times you can do this per turn. The first ability, for sure, should be an exhaust. Because being able to just clear an entire board of artifacts, it seems a little ridiculous. Or spells. I mean, you could just... This card would literally just shut down that artifact creature deck. But even so, just limit this to once per turn. And the only other issue is this can... It doesn't say... It says put into play. I assume this means from nowhere and not necessarily from hand. Which means you could put Muriel Silencer on the board with 4 components. And that does not seem very fair. But that may be just Muriel Silencer fault, to be honest. Anyways, great card. Just needs to be a little tuned up. And I don't know if the environment is right for it. I think the whole transformation thing probably just needs to be reworked a little. Because it makes things like the renovation facility tricks really bad. Because if you worked really hard to get a Steel Sentient, and your opponent just plays Tornado Outbreak and it turns back into a drone, that really sucks. Really, really sucks. So that definitely is going to have to change. And if it does, Combobulator would be a really fun card to play around. We got Mechanize over here. So this one is by YS Chaos, who's probably trying to redeem himself with his from his little gaffe with Morgana. Anyways, basically you give something the type automaton artifact creature in addition to whatever it is, and it gets a Might Emblem, and you draw a card. It looks like a really simple card, but it's actually very interesting because at worst you could just use it to buff something and draw a card, like a Might Emblem plus card draw for 2 mana. It's not bad at all, honestly, not at all bad. And making other things automatons and artifacts, if you're playing that sort of deck, it's not that great because most of your stuff is probably already artifact creatures, but you could use it on enemy creatures and then hit them with artifact removal. Yeah, that could be a way to remove their creatures. So I really like this card, and I'm going to put it in the top 5 because it's really flexible. It's a good like value play with just a single buff and a card draw, but it has some potential with some removal shenanigans, and it also can what was I gonna say? Well, it just further supports the artifact creature archetype, which is cool. Although you don't even have to be running that. If you're running any artifact removal like Gnome Power Engineer, I mean, Mechanize redraws itself. So Mechanize plus Gnome Power is instant removal of any creature you want. And that's something blue could use. So I like the flexibility of this card. We got Dark Empowerment by Compendium. Legendary spell, Curse. Whenever a spell is played, you can pay 1 to remove a weakness emblem from a creature. Unfortunately, this card is really bad, simply because the effect to remove a weakness emblem is far too specific. Not only that, you can only do it when a spell is played. in addition to this costing 3 mana, I mean, you could just have this pay 1 mana to remove a weakness emblem, like once per turn, without any requirements, and make it cost 2 mana instead of 3. And even then, I don't think it would see any play. So, sorry, friend. It's just way too specific. And the effect is just not enough to really warrant any kind of play. Like, removing weakness emblem is not something you need to be doing. Unless you have some specific synergy in mind with, like, for the future contest where you want to remove weakness emblem from stuff. But until that day comes, I'm afraid Dark Empowerment is not looking too good. That's it for this page. Moving on. Spell Jamming by Ryan. So this one, you can either destroy a spell or you can play it ahead of time to destroy the next spell that's played. That's kind of neat. It doesn't say, but I assume it works the same way that Jungle Death Trap does, where if you have 2 of these on the board, they will both go away when your opponent plays a spell. Because otherwise you could just play several of these and like just deny your opponent's spells. It would become a really annoying situation. Jungle Death Trap is bugged, by the way, where if you have multiples, you're only supposed to lose 1. But that would be really lame because it would mean your opponent has to play through all of them, and any Jungle Death Trap they don't play through, they take 4 damage. So that's an example of a good bug. So I would think Spell Jamming would work the same way. Cool card. It'd be nice to have. I'm not even sure if you really need to play this, but it is an answer to things like Scatter's Bidding for Wisdom, and you could use it to protect yourself against Cataclysm by playing it ahead of time when you're expecting your board to get hit by Cataclysm. So yeah, it's neat. I like the idea. Also, the artwork from I forgot what it's called, but I think if I remember correctly, this was a spell that like mills your opponent or something. It has to do with milling. I know that much. Anyway. Moving on, Yadah. The Curse of Yadah. Oh, man. It's a real deal. I love the flavor text, by the way. That's how you shut somebody up, Risha. So, Yadah is here to tell us, hey, Curse of Risha is absolute trash. I'm going to make it better. So, what he's saying is, every time your enemy plays a spell, you steal 2 life instead of them just losing 1 life. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, I think this card is still trash. Because it no longer draws, which means, I mean, most of the time, not that many spells are going to be played. Although, I will say, if you play this against, like, a Dragon combo deck, you know, they like to play Horizons, Power Surge, Assassinate, Cataclysm, and all that. It could actually be really fun if you have this on the board and they, like, they can't play spells. But I don't know if it's really worth running just to stop spells. It'd be interesting if the effect was like, you know, when they play a spell, you steal 1 life. When they play a second spell, you steal 2 life. And you steal 3 life and then 4. That might be too obnoxious. You don't necessarily want to design cards that prevent your opponent from playing stuff. And that's what this kind of does. Is this better than the actual Curse of Risha? The effect is obviously much more powerful, but it loses card draw. I guess it probably is better. Probably. But I still wouldn't put this card into my deck. But Yadah gets entertainment points for the flavor text. Oh yeah, Yadah, the Fixer of Cards. I almost missed that part at the bottom. That's pretty good. I wonder if you have any other ideas. Will we see the Word of Yadah as a fix to Word of Vigor? That would be interesting. Are we gonna see something like, I don't know. What's another bad card? Spoils of Yadah. They redesigned to Spoils of War. Yadah version. It's gonna be a lot better. Like, you're gonna draw 5 cards or something. I don't know. Or like gain 5 life and draw 4 cards. I'm looking forward to more Yadah cards, man. I want to see some more fixes by Yadah, the Fixer of Cards. I want to see where he's gonna take us. Curse of Yadah though, not quite there. But I think if you put draw a card on top of this, it actually becomes a decent card. Because it redraws and it makes spells really bad for your opponent. That might be good enough. Anyways, moving on. Soul Collector by Usagi. Nice use of the Enchained Soul art. Anyways, basically it gains energy when an Enchained Soul dies. And then you can spend 3 energy to put a Haunt on a spell or artifact. That seems way too specific. Haunt is not really like a great card. It's kind of funny, but that's all it is. And you have to lose 3 Enchained Souls to even get 1 trigger. And you have to have this on the board. And this is not even like a good card. So it seems like a lot of work for very minimal effort. I do like the idea of like having something to attach Haunt to it. Haunt seems like the perfect card to have another card created and attached to something. But not like this. I think this is a little bit too tame. I think you'd have to turn the dial up on this card to make it a little bit more powerful. And then it'd be interesting. Moving along, we've got Spellbinding by Zaralon. So this is essentially a continuation of the cycle of those 2-mana cards that redraw themselves and destroy themselves and do something. So this one makes spells cost 2 more to play. Just like the other ones, it's probably not playable in any way. It is a fun way to stop a Cataclysm for 1 turn, but it doesn't seem worth 2 mana just to do that. But is that better than the spell jamming card? Maybe it is actually. Because it draws a card. It costs the same, but it draws a card. But on the other hand, it cannot destroy a spell already on the board. I don't know. I believe this is also from Magic the Gathering. I'm pretty sure I remember. Is it like... It might be cancel. It's either cancel or counterspell. I can't remember which one. But yeah. It's neat. It's probably just not playable just like all the other ones. I mean, Murder Instinct is not seeing play. And Murder Instinct gives stuff deadly. And goes back to your hand. So, but it's a nice card to have in the collection, I guess. You got Muriel, the Dominion Angel by, was it Cheapskate Gamer? So, Wisdom, I mean, Dominion Order Angel, it's a really interesting color combination, but it means you can't play with Soluxio. So, creatures with spells or artifacts attached to them gain lifebound, and then you can move a weakness emblem from something onto Muriel. This reminds me of that Orb card. Just moving weakness emblems onto her doesn't seem really very useful. The only way you're really going to get these weakness emblems is from implants. And with Muriel on the board, anything you implant basically gains lifebound. But it doesn't really seem like... It seems like a little bit too much work. And it's a dual color card as well. You would expect a little bit more from a dual color card. It's an interesting idea, I guess. Like, I never really thought of that sort of synergy. But I think the whole moving weakness emblem thing could be a little bit better. Where maybe instead of weakness emblem, you know, if a weakness emblem would be put on a creature, it gets a might emblem. So if you put implants on your guys, they like get bigger instead of smaller with Muriel on the board. That might be something cool. Whereas as it is, the effect of just moving something onto her is kind of tame, because she's gonna get weaker. And she'll eventually die. So she'll just absorb a couple weakness emblems. But for a card that costs 4 mana and requires 2 different colors, and not ones you see often together, it's just a little bit too nice. She's just too nice of a girl. She needs to be a little bit mean. A little bit more mean to see play. And there's an interesting idea behind this. If we play around with the weakness emblem thing a little bit more. But not... Just moving them around, I don't think, is enough. We got Investigation Office by Dobritze. This is the card that made me scratch my head, because I have no idea whether it's good. It's probably not good, but it's really weird. So how does it work? So it's going to get a bunch of energy when it comes in, and then you can use the energy to look at your opponent's hand. Okay. And then when it has 0 energy, you sack it, and you summon this dude. And this dude is kind of like a Temptress of Deceit. If he hits your opponent in the face, you can sack him and then destroy either all spells or artifacts in his hand and graveyard. Or remove them all. But you don't get to see his hand first. Generally, you're going to hit spells because most decks run a lot more spells than they run artifacts. So generally, if he hits face, just destroy all spells in their hand. Could be really good. Now, this is the one time where having the... use this power only during your turn and once per turn is bad. Normally, I don't like the idea of creatures being able to be summoned in the middle of combat. But because the creature is so weak, and it's only one time, because it only happens when this dies, I think we could get away with it, letting you summon it anytime. Basically, letting you look at their hand anytime. So you could summon him at the end of their turn, and he's on the board. Yeah, he's potentially dangerous, but again... this only happens when the investigation office dies, and so you only get one of them. You don't get to keep doing it like with cloning vats you used to be able to do. So yeah, I think that would be cool. Like, this guy could be really terrifying because, okay, my opponent can just look at my hand anytime, and then he comes down at the end of turn, and if I have no blockers, he's gonna just kill all my spells. Damn! It could be nasty. It could be really, really nasty. Really fun answer to spells or artifacts, but like, because you can only do it during your turn, your opponent is gonna get a turn to deal with this, and they're gonna deal with it. It's a 1/2 with 2 speed. So maybe we should have gone a little bit more aggressively and make you be able to use this power anytime, so you can summon this little bastard at the end of their turn, you know, by using the last energy, and then just surprise, you know, shot to the face, destroy all his spells. I don't know. Really, really interesting card. Very elaborate, too. I was looking at this, oh man, this card's gonna be crazy, but then it's like, kind of not. I don't know. This was quite a head-scratcher card. And that's it for that page. We're almost done. Second to last, Summoned Avatar by Zoid. Shaman Spirit. I would have put this in the top 5 if it had card art, basically. But it does not. But it's still an interesting card. It's a Shaman that goes on the support row and cannot be moved forward until his energy is set to 0. And how does he lose energy? You can pay with his energy for the activation of totem. So if you play him, you can use his energy instead of the totem energy to activate the different totems. And once he's on the board, when you play the next Shaman, you can do the same thing. That's actually really cool. It's a really powerful Shaman, actually, because he's got a good body, and he can basically get you a couple of free triggers from your totems. That's pretty good. At the moment, Nature Shamans are not very good, because the Corruption Shamans are just better. So you play Corruption Shamans. With this guy, maybe it gets you to play Nature Shamans again. Maybe. Because, I mean, it's a really good body for the cost, and a couple free triggers with your totems. It's a really good value. It's like another Rakshi tribe almost. That actually might be enough to play Nature Shamans. Oh, do you play 3-color Shamans? Probably not. Maybe you do. But anyways, it's a really solid card. I would put it into a Shaman deck and try it out. But again, no card art. I kind of think having card art is important because once you learn the cards, you recognize them by the picture. You see the picture, you know exactly what the card does. You don't do it by reading. We tend to kind of remember in pictures better. That's why the art is so important to me. So I think if you want to be in the top 5 or whatever, you gotta have card art. You just gotta have card art. But pretty cool card. And the last card is my own, the Desert Stinger. I got the idea from Eternal. There's a creature in Eternal that kind of has this effect where it's instant and it comes on the board. And it's deadly, so you can immediately block with it and kill something. That's essentially the idea. He's in your hand, you play him, you block something, you kill it. He also has a secondary effect where you can discard him along with a spell or artifact to destroy a spell or artifact on the board, right? So, I like this. I like the idea here because it's kind of like a multi-purpose card. It can be used as removal, basically. It's kind of like a pacify in that sense, except that it kills the creature instead of like bouncing it back to hand. And also, you can use it as removal of spells or artifacts. But unlike Unicorn, he doesn't go on the board. He has to be discarded and with another card. So it's expensive to remove a spell or an artifact. Whereas the old Unicorn, you can just destroy any spell or artifact willy-nilly. So I think it's a fair card. I think it's a flexible, decent card. I made it double aspect, so it's not like splashable too much, because Nature would probably like to run something like this. Because it's good to protect your board. It's almost like a pacify. It's a little bit more fair, because when you intercept the block, the creature that was attacked then can't block. Whereas with pacify, you remove the creature from the attack, and then the thing that was attacked can then just block something else. So yeah, that's my submission. I hope you like it. I kind of wanted to get in on this contest one way or the other. I might do this in the future as well. Just submit a card of my own. See what I would have submitted if I wasn't judging these contests. Anyways, now that we have seen all the cards, you've seen the top 5. of those top 5, there was one that really made me think, oh man, I really wish this card was in the game. It should have been in the game. It's the Great Foundry by Lyris, winner of the contest. The moment I saw this card, I thought, wow, that's awesome. This just should have been introduced in the expansion instead of that crappy draw card shrine that they have now. It's perfect. It's just perfect for the archetype. It's another way to, grow your artifacts. Because right now you can only do it with Renovation Facility. Having this would just be perfect. The art, I know, is probably not from a card game, but it looks good. Like, it fits pretty well. It's well designed. It's expensive, a long cooldown, but that's fair. It really tries to push the archetype forward, and I really like that. Actually, this and Mechanize, but I think this is the better card. So well done, Lyris. You're the winner. Congratulations. You're the man, I guess. Well done. Anyways, I'm going to announce the next contest as soon as I'm done with this, and I'll see you guys next time.